Okay, we're holding 98b at the bottom. There's a Mishnah. The Mishnah towards the bottom. Tzadik Chesem at base. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. Especially our learning Mishnah the base of Migdash. Learning the Nishmas Havagol Basparach Binyamin and Sanal said Ben Metzia for Shlema, Rav and David Ben Sarah. For anyone else who needs for Shlema. Okay, the Mishnah starts like this. Shayla Sapara. Someone borrows a cow. So every Mishnah of this parak. Now, yes, he really wants to borrow. He really wants the land. He says, I have a cow. I'm going to lend it to you. Yeah, I'm going to send it over with my son. Sends it over with his son. Biad Avdei sends it over with his slave. Biad Shluchai sends it over with his agent. Or maybe he's going to send it with the agent or the son or the slave of the borrower. The first case is he's sending with his own son, lender's son. Second case is the borrower's son.
Assuming that the milk he gets from the cow is also it's his, he's not borrowing.
What happens with the milk when you borrow a cow? I guess it's the borrowers.
Same thing with the donor. Anything.
Sorry?
Anything.
I assume he's not returning those things. They're returning the dung or the.
Yeah.
It does depend.
Take care of it. Whatever the milk the cow gives, you have to report it to the state. What about the dung? I'm not sure if they asked for that.
So what's the halacha in these cases? Mesa, the animal dies. Now we're talking about where it never made it to the borrower. It died along the way. So what's the halacha? Should the borrower have to pay for an item that he never fully received? Halacha is pater. He's exempt. Never got it. But let's say the borrower tells to the lender, Shilchali, Biad B'ni, Biad Avdi, Biad Shluchi. Send it. This is the borrower telling the lender, giving instructions. Send it with my son, with my servant, with my slave, with my agent. Or send it with your son, send it with your slave, with your agent. Or even if this was initiated by the lender, he says, I'm going to send it with my son, with my agent, my slave, or with your son, your agent, your slave, your agent. Whatever the case is, the response of the borrower is shlach. Send it. B'shalcha u'meisa, he sent it and it died, then he's chayiv. Let me just explain like what's the gist of this. If the instructions were given by the borrower to send it, so then the borrower is taking responsibility immediately when it leaves the home of the lender. But if the lender took the initiative to send it without any instructions of the borrower, even if it's the borrower's son or all of that, but because that was all initiated by him, the borrower didn't acquire it.
The lender say, I'm lending it just to you, and he specifies a name. He doesn't mention like his sons or servants.
No, it's not that he's not lending it to the sons. Did the borrower receive it yet when he gives it to the son to bring it? This happens often. People give things to other people to bring it over to them, and then in the middle something happens. The question is, well, I gave it to the person that you said to give it to, or I figured it would be so obvious, that he would get it to you because he was going that way anyway. And this type of, well, we're talking about first he's lending it, and then the same thing is going to apply with returning it. What applies to returning it is that if the borrower wants to return it to the lender, and he sends it with his son, then it's still under the borrower's domain.
Right.
But if the lender says, why don't you send it with your son or send it with my son or whatever, then it's once he gives it to passes out of his house, once it goes past his boundaries, so then the lender accepted that responsibility. He told him how to return it.
All of this needs to be kept. It's about who gives the instruction.
Yeah. Why are you saying, what do you mean similar to the get? What happened by the get? Oh, there were two. There was a shliach lekabbalah and shliach le'alacha. It depends who makes it, but then it is very similar.
Was, but here doesn't matter whose shliach it was. It's about who gave the
Who they
instruction.
gave the instructions, right?
Just return his domain.
Yeah, if the borrower didn't give the instruction, if the borrower initiated the return, so then it would have to go all the way back for him to be exempt. He's going to be responsible along the whole way. Okay, now one of the cases of the Mishnah, at the end says that if the borrower agrees, if the borrower says to send it with your slave, so we said that because the borrower said it, that's considered like he acquires it right when it leaves the lender's house, even before he receives it. Here, this question would be: when things get lost in the mail, who's responsible? The mail, but forget about the mail. We're talking about the like I order something and it doesn't show up.
You paid for it already.
I paid for it. It happened to me like a few weeks ago. I ordered something and it doesn't show up, and I can track it, and it says, "Oh, it's getting returned to the thing." Like, what's going on over here? Where did it go? So I emailed them, like, where's the thing? No response. You just wait. You just wait. There's no phone number. Just wait. But who's really responsible for that? They put it in the mail, and I could track it.
They're responsible till you receive it.
Until I receive it. Here we're saying that if I accept which mail that it should go with, if you click this type of shipping, this type of, you're accepting which type of shipping, I'm probably responsible. That's what it seems like from this. You told me how to send it. That's what it would seem. Okay, so the Gemara over here says, "Bi'adavda chayev." If the borrower says to send it with the slave of the lender, then the borrower is already chayev. Chayev for a borrower means he's chayev. He's responsible even for unpreventable circumstances. It's a huge responsibility for this, and it's still in the hands of the slave of the lender. It's a slave of the borrower. I understand why he's responsible, but here it's still possibly in the hands of the slave of the lender, and he's still chayav. What's going on? Don't we say that the hands of the slave are like the hands of the master? And it really should be considered under the lender, still under his domain, his jurisdiction. Amar Shmuel says, we said slave, we weren't talking about a non-Jewish slave, we're talking about a Jewish slave. That the body of the slave is not owned, and therefore it's not considered like it's the lender. It's considered just like an agent. It could be an agent for him, an agent for him. If the borrower says that that I wanted you to send it with him, so even though he's the lender's Jewish slave, but it's considered already in the hands of the borrower. If it would be a non-Jewish slave, then when you say, I want you to bring, it's like as if he said, I want you to bring it over to my house. He's telling the lender himself. It would be a non-Jewish slave. So it's still in the hands of the lender.
But because David Livery is his own person.
His own person, so then he's not automatically, it's not everything, he doesn't represent the lender fully. He could also be representing the borrower.
Was also he had to be able to testify.
Right.
This is a Jew also. But in the over there, this should be
Talking about by the woman, by the get. Okay. So that's the answer of Shmuel. Rav Amar, Rav says, Afilu tema bevet knani. Could even say that it's a non-Jewish slave. How are you going to explain this? Rav says that when he says to give it with to send it with the slave, what he really means to say is just open your gate, give a little shout, hit it with a stick, and let it walk. And don't worry, it'll get to me. The slave will accompany him, but I'm not saying it's not like really in the hands of the slave. It's as if he said, just hit it with a stick and it will come to me on its own. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. According to Rav, Shayal Para, so on Baraz Kalva Shalchale Biad B'nai Biad Shlichi Chayev, and he sends it to him with you have to add in a little comment here to make it fit with what we're understanding. Is that the borrower instructed the lender to send it with your own son, with your own agent, he's going to be chayav. Biad avdei. But if he instructs him to send it with his slave, then he's going to be pater. We see over here from this brisa that there's a difference between if he's sending it with a slave or if he's sending it with an agent. We're talking about the slave of the lender, the agent of the lender. So Bishleim Shmuel, according to Shmuel, that he said that the Mishnah is talking about that it's a Jewish slave, and that's why the borrower is going to be chayav. So what we can explain it over here, Masnisin Bevet Ivri, Brisa Bevet Kanani. We have a difference between the Mishnah and the Brisa. The Mishnah says that the borrower is chayav. The Brisa says the borrower is pater, and there's a slave being used to bring the item over. So we can explain the Mishnah is talking about a Jewish slave, the Brisa is talking about a non-Jewish slave. So it's still considered in the hands of the owner until the borrower gets it. Rav Kasha, but according to Rav, he says they're both talking about a non-Jewish slave. So why is there this distinction that in the Mishnah he is chayiv and in the Brisa he's pater? Amalach Rav, so Rav would respond to you, we were learning the Mishnah that when he says send it with your slave, it's as if he told him open the gate, hit it with the stick, and don't worry about it. But if that's the case, then how do we make a distinction between that and the Brisa, and then the Brisa is going to be pater? So we're answering that Rav is saying, no, in the Mishnah, he actually told him to send it with to open the gate and send, not that it's as if he said that, but he actually said that. In the Brisa, he didn't say that. It's a very problematic answer because the Mishnah did not mention that at all. And Rav is throwing in these words into the Mishnah that doesn't exist, and he's even like taking out words of the Mishnah. He says, "Send it with your slave." He's going to be chayav, and Rav is like just deleting those words and saying, "Don't send it with your slave. Just open the gate, and it's going to be fine." And the Brisa that has a different statement, it's going to be send it with your slave. Okay, I don't know the answer.
The Brisa doesn't even have this whole conversation. It just sounds like the show just sends it.
Yeah, I'm adding in the words because Rashi says, the case is where the borrower asked him to send it with your son. Yeah. Which would then continue to mean the borrower said, send it with your slave. And so the borrower is agreeing to that, and nevertheless, he's still pater. So, and the reason why he's pater is because it's a non-Jewish slave, and that's still considered in the hands of the lender. Yeah, the problem is in the Mishnah is that Rav is just, if it's a nasa ka'imalai, then I can interpret, I say, send it with your slave. What I mean is, just don't worry about it. Just open it up and it will go. The slave, whatever. But once he turns it into Ba'amalei, so then what happened to the slave? Okay. Amar the Itmar, that we have a statement. We have a statement of Amram. Mashaleni Parascha. Someone says, lend me your cow. Amalei biad me. Says, how would you like me to ship it? To send it? UPS. Amalei kisha b'makal v'tavi. Says, hit it with a stick and it's gonna go. Amrav Nachman, Amrav Baravu, Amrav. Rav Nachman says in the name of his father-in-law, Rabbi Baravu, says in the name of Rav, which is the Rav that we were talking about a minute ago. Even Shiatzas Mishus Mashal Mesa Chayev. Once it leaves his house, he's already responsible. It's already responsible. And that's what we were saying also, that he becomes responsible, even though there may be a slave accompanying him. But so what? He said to hit it with the stick. That's the borrower taking responsibility. Okay, now the Gemara says, Name a Messiah. All of this is Rav, like self-referencing. But there happens to be, there's a brisa that actually supports Rav, a brisa that's stronger than a statement of Rav. You know, Rav Tanupalik, whatever. But there's a brisa, a real brisa that supports Rav. What is that? Brisa says like this: Ashileni parascha. Someone says, "Lend me your cow." V'amalei biad me. Says, "How should I get it to you?" V'amalei kisha b'makal v'itavei. Hit it with a stick and they will come. Even Shiatzas Mishus Mashal Mesas Chayev. See, exactly the statement of Rav, that if you say just open the gate and hit it with the stick, then the borrower is already chayev. Who's doing the acquisition? Why is the borrower doing an acquisition? No, the lender's hitting it with the stick.
Oh,
yeah.
But he's instructed by the other guy.
But he's instructed by the borrower. The borrower is talking to the lender. He says, "I need to borrow your cow." So then it says, "How would you like me to send it over?" He says, "Just open the gate and hit it." Yeah. So without any without the borrower doing any acquisition, he's already responsible because that was his instruction. Yeah.
Like he signed it over right there at the gate of the lender.
The lender, yeah.
Can't make a key.
Right. But he was accepting verbally the responsibility.
Why would he do that?
Yeah. I don't know. He wants it.
If this was a purchase rather than a borrowing, would these same acts that transfer responsibility to the borrower be a good Kinyan?
If the answer is yes, that would help us out over here.
Yeah.
A lot. But I'm not sure if the answer is yes. Where was there was a discussion here. Yeah, Taisvis over here discusses where is where is it going to when it leaves his. It says l'chayra nera. You see that Taisvis? L'chayra nera d'mayir shiyatsa miyad l'simta l'tzidir shusarabim d'chashav ki l'mashcha shayel. We're trying to make it as if there was a mashicha, a pulling of the shayel of the borrower. Now that only takes place in certain areas, in the side of the public domain, for these certain areas. But if he opens his gate and it goes straight into Rosh Hashanah, Taisa says, "Loi," then it's not going to work. Even the Mashiach ain't going to be Rosh Hashanah. So why didn't it elaborate on this? It says, "Oh, it's obvious." Yeah, so it looks like this would be considered an acquisition. Because he's doing it on the instruction of the borrower, would be the same, could be the same if he is buying it. So how do you want to acquire it? He says, open the gate, hit it with the stick and it will come. Because it's in the instructions of the purchaser, maybe the same thing would apply. One second, I didn't get into that yet. Yeah. So far we have a proof for Rav because we have a brisa that says the same thing, that if he hits it with the stick, he becomes responsible. Amar Ravashi says the brisa that you're quoting is not a good proof. Rav's statement is one thing. The brisa is something else. And you know what the Bryce is talking about? Because we're talking about where the two courtyards are right next to each other. So when he opens the gate, there's only one place for it to go. So that's why he's accepting responsibility right from then. But in the statement of Rav, it has to walk down the street. That's a different story. Maybe he's not responsible. The Bryce is one thing, and the Rav is something else. Gemara says, if that's what the Bryce is telling me, that he opens the gate and it opens directly into the other person's courtyard. So, Maila Memra, why do I need a Bryce? What halacha are you telling me? You basically put it into the yard. So he automatically gets it. It's automatically responsible. Gemara says, that it doesn't go directly into the yard. There are places in between where it could hide along the way. In other words, it's not that there's one wall, you open the gate and it goes right in. Some sort of path that it goes on. I know along this path, there's nowhere else for it to go. It has no other courtyards that it's going to end up. But there are little spots over there where it could hide. And maybe it didn't make it all the way. And so maybe the responsibility, when the accepted responsibility, because of the instructions, he's accepting responsibility. Yeah, big discussion about the word kazaisa over here. Rashi says the word kazaisa, he quotes it, Guz chish. Guz means to like float or fly. Somehow Rashi's learning. I thought Kiguz Chish Vanu said it. It's swift. It flees swiftly. Vayage Slavim means that the quail flew. But somehow Rashi's translating it to mean that it's a corner or a hiding place. Yeah, I looked in the back. There's whenever Rashi quotes a French word in the back of the Gemara, there's something called a Metargim that translates all the French words into Yiddish. It's right if you Rav Naftali, if you have a big Gemara, it's right before the Marsha. Well, it's right after the Pirush Mishnayos. And in my Gemara, it's page 70. And in the Metargim, where he says, what is Gazaisa? He says, Schlafwinkel. Yeah, it sounds like a sleeping corner, something, a corner where they sleep. Schlafwinkel. Means some sort of hiding place.
You have it translated as nooks.
Okay.
I think it belongs to.
That it belongs to another person, the nooks and crannies? No, I didn't realize that. I thought the nooks and crannies just meant that it wouldn't make it. Number 13. Ritva, when the nooks and crannies were located between the two crannies in another person's property. Okay, that's the Ritva. Okay, fine. I was following Rashi. Rashi didn't make it look like it was going to someone else's property. Okay. Okay, I didn't finish the Gemara. I could have thought that he wasn't relying on it. To receive it. Maybe it won't come directly. It's coming to teach us that no, the Bryce, the Chiddush of the Bryce said no, it does come directly. It's not going to stop in the nooks and crannies. Okay. Then we have a new Gemara. Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna says, "Ashayel karda mechaveirei." Someone borrows an axe, hatchet. Okay. Bakabai. What is a hatchet? It's an axe, probably, you know. Small axe.
Like a handbell.
What did George Washington get?
Chop down
The cherry tree. What was that?
Is it an axe or a hatchet?
Yeah. Very important question.
Probably. The hatchet is small. When you go to the seminar, you throw axes or hatchets, I think,
So they can really get it right into the tree.
It has to go in the tree or it's a real weapon.
So Bakabai, if the borrower used it, he used it to cut wood, kanai, he acquired it. Lay bakabai, if he didn't use it yet, lay kanai, didn't acquire it. This seems to contradict everything that we're saying till now, because we're saying that, oh, send it to me. He's already responsible even before. Forget about if he used it. He's responsible even before he gets it. Now we're saying he's only, what was it? A hatchet. George Washington used a hatchet. Now we're saying that maybe he wanted to acquire it. That's why he was cutting down the tree. That's Rav Huna. So you have to use it. If you don't use it, you don't acquire it. It's a huge chiddush. Lamai, what are you referring to? Ilay Malainson. Are you talking about be responsible for unpreventable, damages? To the hatchet. Maishna para the mishas shila. Well, what happened with the cow? That was from the time of borrowing. Even by the borrowing, it could be even once it left the lender's house. When I answer chazara, we're not talking about if the borrower is responsible. We're talking about if the lender can retract. See, you would think that if someone lends someone something, so he can claim it back whenever he wants. I need it back. Someone was just telling me about some guy lent him money, and he said, "Pay me back whenever you want. Don't worry about it. Take your time." Then a few months later, the guy says, "Oh, my business changed. I need it back immediately." And the guy's like, "I don't have it." He says, "You're a thief. You're this. You have to pay me. I need payments every month. You don't." He said, "You didn't arrange this when we set up this thing. It's just changing all the things." So over here, we're seeing that you can't do that. But you can do that before the person uses it. I don't know if the same thing would apply to money. Let's say the person lends him money, and he's immediately shows up. Like the next day, he says, "I need the money back." So he says, if he says, "I already spent it," doesn't exist. So then that probably this would kick in. Let's say he says, "Yeah, you're right. It's still sitting right here, still in the bag." Maybe the person can ask for it back.
Spend money.
Immediately, it's considered spent. That's what I understood. But here, by this item, it says if he didn't use it yet, chazara if he used it to cut the lender can't say I need it back. But if he hasn't used it yet, then the lender can say, "I would like it back. I don't want you to use it. I'm sorry. I'm doing work on my own thing and I need the extra tools."
I mean, what can the lender do if he makes a condition and says he wants it back in a month from now, and can't charge ribbis?
Can't charge ribbis. They just commit it. He's not even allowed to make it crazy. It's not allowed, but they do it anyway. You're not allowed to. What's the word? Intimidate, harass. You can't harass him. Well, this statement, pligi de Rabami, this is going to argue on something that Rabami says. Again, Rav Huna is saying that the lender can retract from this from lending if the person hasn't used the hatchet yet. Now, Rabami says, "Dam Rabami hamashal kardim shel hektish." If someone borrows a hatchet from hektish, well, that's a problem because you shouldn't be using it. The gizber shouldn't be lending it out either. Mal, he violates lafitay v'sanashabai. Now, who violates over here? The one who violates is the lender is violating it by lending it out, because when he lends it to him, he's getting a benefit that the person feels indebted to him. This person lent me it wasn't even his, but that benefit, because it was hektish, but that benefit is the benefit that the lender is getting. So the lender was mal, by that amount of benefit that he gets of the indebtedness of the borrower. The borrower, he's allowed to use it. Why? Because the me'ila was already done. Once me'ila happens, you see, in order for me'ila to really happen, it has to actually leave hektish. when Me'ila happens, it leaves Hektish, and the person violates the rules of Me'ila. So what we're saying now is that the person is now allowed to go and use it. But 1 second, but if he doesn't really acquire it, like according to Rav Huna, until he uses it, amai mal. So why was the lender mal? He didn't do anything. The meal is all on the borrower when he uses it. Why should he be allowed to go and use it? The using it is the main problem. Let him return it. He shouldn't acquire it, and there'll be no meila, according to Rav Huna. So Rav Huna's statement argues on Rabami. And Pliga de Rabbi Lazar, it also argues on Rabbi Lazar. Rav Huna is really taking on a lot over here. Why? Damar Rabbi Lazar says, that once, just like by a purchase, this maybe goes along with the Reb Naftali question before, by a purchase, just like there's a concept of Mashiach, you have to pull it, so too there's a concept of Mashiach by watchman, which means that it's not when the person uses it that he acquires it. Once he takes it, he's acquiring it. Tanya Nami Achib is also taught in a brisa. Just like there's acquisition by a purchase, so too there's acquisition by watchmen. Just like property is acquired with money, documents, and with showing ownership, so too when someone rents something, it's acquired with money, documents, and showing ownership. Now the problem is schiras maya vidite. What are you talking about? When you rent an animal, the showing ownership is enough, and money is enough. We didn't learn that money is enough. Money is enough, maybe biblically, but not rabbinically. Remember, we had all those gemaras before about mayis kainas machlekes rish lakish and Rabbi Yochanan, if it's midaraisa midarabana, if money works as acquisition, or if you have to take the item. Remember that. So, what are you saying that with money it's going to acquire? Rav Chizda says no. What we meant to be here to say is renting property, that works with money. Just like acquiring property is with money, that's one of the options. So too, renting property is also with money. Money will work for property or for a wife. Kesef shtar chazaka, right? That's for property. The document, same as well, and chazaka is showing ownership. That's maybe comparable also to the relation. I don't know. Okay. Amar Shmuel, a new Gemara. New topic. Haiman the Gazel Chavitza the Tamri Mechaverai Vispe Chamishim Tamri. Agav Hadadi. I'm sorry, Ispe Chamishim Tamri. Agav Hadadi Mizdaben Benun Nakichada. The way it works is like this: a person stole pressed dates from his friend. There are 50 dates in there. In this pressed dates, it comes 50 dates pressed. Now, if you sell it together, then it costs 49 coins. Chada, if you sell them individually, Mizdabn Benun, you sell it for 50. This is like old-fashioned business, exactly the way it used to work years ago. Now, I don't know, it's a different story now. Now it's with stocks and things. Okay, but you make an extra coin when you sell it individually. Okay. Lehektish. Let's say the person stole it from Hektish. Mishalem chamishim v'chamshayo. You don't pay back 49. You stole them all at once. You don't, right? You stole the whole thing. We're not going to charge him 50. Well, actually, we are going to charge him 50, even though he stole it all at once. That should only be the value of 49, right? But nevertheless, we charge him 50. Plus, he has to pay a fifth on top. Fifth on top is going to be 50 divided by 4. Whatever that is.
Pressed together, it's 50.
Sorry?
When it's pressed together, it's 50.
12 and a half.
Right.
So Mashenkin b'mazik, but when someone damages it, he also has to pay 50, but he doesn't pay the extra fifth, Damar, because the master taught Ishkiachal Kodesh Prat Mazik. So when a man eats something from Hekdesh, he has to pay the extra fifth, but not if he damages something. Okay. If he would damage it, then he doesn't have to pay the extra fifth. No, even if it's Hekdesh. Did we say how much he pays if he stole it, or did we skip that? We only spoke about Hekdesh.
If he stole it, doesn't he have to pay twice the value? The extra fifth is.
Yeah, he would have to
if
pay twice if it was
If
theft.
he steals.
Right. Lehedyet. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the line. Yeah. Lehedyet mishalem chamishim nakichad. I skipped the main line. I'm sorry. If it's a regular person, then he pays 50 minus 1. He pays 49. If it's Hekdesh, he pays 50. Yeah, that was the point of this. 49 for a regular person, 50 for Hekdesh. Okay, now Maskefla Rabibi Barabaya, Rabibi or Baby Barabaya, he asks a question. Why does he pay 49 if he steals from a regular person? The guy can say, I was going to sell it in the marketplace, each one individually, and I was going to make 50 off it. Now you stole it. Now I lost my income, and you're giving me just coins back. But that's not that's not the value that I had from it. The value that I had from it was 50 coins, and you're only paying me 49. Amar Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua. Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua says, "Shaman Beisav Beisadatnan." You have to remember what we learned about damages, that we're not harsh on the on someone that causes damage. We're very lenient, and instead of him paying, let's say you allow someone allows his animal to eat someone else's property, we don't have him pay for the damage that it does. We take the entire property, we evaluate what it's worth before the damage, we evaluate what the property is worth after the damage, and he has to pay the difference, which is very minor compared to if we would have to pay the retail price for exactly what the animal ate. It's just the difference. So because of that, now that was with the mazik. Now somehow the Gemara is comparing this, but the same thing should apply to the person that stole. That was if he didn't allow the animal to go in, wasn't negligent. If the animal fell in, then he only pays the benefit. That's basically saying that he's exempt from payment, but he still has to pay for his benefit. When it says paying for benefit, it's basically another way of saying you're exempt. You don't have to pay, but you got a little benefit, so you pay that. Here we're talking about paying for damages. The only thing that's not clear in this Gemara is how do we just get to stealing? That was talking about damages.
Maybe because with the whole action, it was like the borrower was get benefit was supposed to. The vendor, the person that became the vendor, he took extras and then he gave it to someone else. That's it, basically.
Yeah, I understand, but now in this case, we're talking about someone that's stealing these dates. He only has to pay 49. We bring a proof. But Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua says, "Oh, that's because when it comes to damages, you pay the lesser price." Okay, whatever.
The enactment that they put so people.
No, that enactment was that you don't accept any payment back, right? Not to take it back.
There was one that
If it was a beam that was in a house, you don't make him take apart his house. But there are other enactments, not that the person, if you have two ways of evaluating a price, that you charge them the lower price. Right? That I don't remember. Okay, now the Gemara says that this statement was a statement of Shmuel that he pays, that there's a difference between if it's hektish or if it's a hedyet. The Maimer, the Savar Shmuel din hedyet lavka din gavaya dami. Comes out that Shmuel says that the way we evaluate this is different for a regular person than the way we do it for hektish. But in second, not 11 hektish, leimal. Someone takes a rock or a beam from hektish, he has not violated the rule of Meila, but nasnila chaveirai, I think that's talking about the gizbar. Rashi explains that it was talking about the gizbar, that he was the treasurer. So even though he thought to take it for himself, but since it's always in his house, he didn't violate Mila yet until he gives it to someone else. Nasal chaveru humal, if he gives it to his friend, that's when the gizbar violates the Mila. V'chaver laimal, and his friend did not violate Mila. Let's say the gizbar himself, the treasurer himself, builds it into something in his house. He puts it up on his roof or something. He only violates the rules of Mila when he lives under it. Okay. V'yasiv Rabavo kameid Rabbi Yochanan. V'yasiv v'kamer shmei Shmuel. Rabavo was sitting in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabavo was a student of Rabbi Yochanan, and he was saying something in the name of Shmuel. And he said, "Zaysei meres." From this we see that if someone sits under a beam from hektish, he only violates Mila when he sits under it. That means that's when he's getting the benefit. This teaches me, back in Baba Kama, we had a question. If someone lives in his friend's property and he doesn't tell him that he's living there, and the property was not being rented out anyway, the person's getting benefit. So the squatter. The question was, does he have to pay for that or not? Because he's getting that benefit. So we see from this, from the fact that you're getting that benefit from hektish, and that's considered a violation, and you're not paying that for it. So that means that if you're living in someone else's property, you do have to pay for it, because by hektish we see that you're getting a benefit, and you're not paying for that benefit, but you're enjoying it, and you really owe money for it. So that's considered a violation. So that means that if you're living in someone's property, you really do have to pay for it. So we just made a comparison between hektish and a regular person.
Is that okay?
Well, we were saying before that hektish and a common person is different. Gemara says, Amalei Rabbi Yochanan, or maybe it's you take out those words. Whatever the case is, the Gemara says, Hadar Bey Shmuel Mehahi. Shmuel retracted from that statement. That last statement that we just said, that if a person lives in someone else's property, we see from hektish that he has to pay for it. That Shmuel retracted from that. He doesn't make that comparison anymore. How do you know that he retracted from the last statement? Maybe he retracted from the other statement where he said that hektish and the hedyot are different. Gemara says, like, it has to be that he retracted from the comparison by hektish and a regular person. Kidarava, like Rava says. Damarava, because Rava says hektish leimidas, kehedyot midas dami. Because you have to view it like this. When the person's living in his friend's property, his friend doesn't know that anyone's there. So he doesn't have to pay for it. But if he's living in Hashem's property, what are you going to say? Hashem doesn't know that he's there?
But Hashem is generous. Maybe we'll go with
Maybe.
free. What reason?
But he doesn't because it's hektish. He's not allowed to be living in it. So he's living under the roof of a hektish roof, a beam of.
But nobody's using the hektish roof.
That's right. But nevertheless, he's not allowed to. So it's considered midas, and that's why you would have that distinction between a hedyot and hektish. Yeah.
So today it's like a squatter who uses a public park versus a squatter who comes in my backyard.
Because the public park would still be not. Do you think the government is like?
No, it's locked up at night. They don't want people to use it.
Uh-huh.
Walks in there, no one's using it at night.
No, but hektish is different than just the public park. Hektish is because Hashem says not to use it, and He knows that
it shouldn't be used at all.
Yeah. Okay, Amar Rava. Let's finish. Amar Rava. Let's finish to the bottom of the page, so we can after Shabbos we can go. Ani shikuloi the tabru chavisa the chamar lechen va. They're these porters. Is that what they're called over there? That they break a barrel of wine of the storekeeper, They're bringing his barrels in and they break one. The Yom Shuka, now we get some background over here. On the day, if it's a market day, the barrel of wine could be sold for 5 coins. But on the other days, gets sold for 4 coins. So a hadrele b'yom shuka, if they're going to pay for it on the market day, they're allowed to give a barrel of wine because what they broke was a barrel of wine. So they can give a barrel of wine. And by the way, that barrel of wine is worth 5 coins because on that day it's worth 5 coins. But if they're going to give a barrel of wine on any other day, they can't do that. Because then they have to pay him 5 coins. Because the barrel of wine is only worth 4. Now, this is all because the owner can say, you're giving me a barrel of wine, but you really broke 5 coins. On the market day, that was for sale for 5. But this claim can only be made if he doesn't have any other wine to sell. But if he does have other wine to sell, then they can claim to him, you should have sold the wine that you had. You weren't even selling your wine. So now you want us to pay the 5? You were just storing it. So it's really only worth 4. However, in all of this discussion, that the wine is not really worth 5 coins because there's a cost that also has to be taken into account. They're just going to give him straight 5 coins for the barrel of wine, but what about the person that has to open up the barrel and put the spout in there? He had to pay for that. So you have to first deduct that from the payment that they need to make because you're not giving him all his profit without any of his expenses. Okay, let's leave it over here. Good Chodesh, everyone. Good Shabbos.
So what's the conclusion?